this video, I'm going to talk about how to graph and just solve or compound inequalities. In this first example here, you can really see that the inequalities are really just two separate inequalities in one problem. They're graphed on the same number line, and so what we want to do if we're solving an OR inequality is just solve each of the inequalities separately. So I'm going to start with the first one. The 2r plus 3 is less than 7. I'm going to go ahead and get r by itself first by subtracting 3 from both sides. So we'll get 2r is less than 4. And then divide both sides by 2 to get r is less than 2. Now I'm going to go ahead and solve the second inequality. Again, completely separate, just as if it were two different problems. I'm going to first subtract 9 from both sides to get negative r is less than or equal to negative 7. And then to get rid of the negative, I'm going to divide both sides by negative 1. And what happens here is if you divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, or even multiply by a negative number, your inequality symbol changes. So this becomes r is greater than or equal to positive 7. So notice how that went from a less than symbol to a greater than symbol. When we graph it, I'm going to just kind of sketch out a graph here. I'll put 2 in there and 7 over here. And we're just going to graph them both separately. This is an OR inequality, so it's r is less than 2 or r is greater than or equal to 7. So let's graph r is less than 2. We're going to have an open dot at 2, and we're going to shade to the left because we want everything smaller than 2. And then we have or r is greater than or equal to 7. So we're going to put a closed dot at 7 and shade to the right. Oh, got rid of my line here. So notice what happens is with our OR inequalities, we have basically just treat it as two completely different inequalities in one problem. There's two different arrows on your graph, and there's just two separate inequalities at the very end here. Moving on to our next example, same situation, anytime you have an OR inequality, just approach it as two separate inequalities in one problem. So with the first one, I'm going to go ahead and subtract 3 from both sides to get negative 17 is greater than w. And I do like to make sure the w is on the left, or anytime I have a variable, I like to put it on the left. So I'm going to flop these around and put the w on the left, negative 17 on the right. And since my inequality symbol was opening towards the negative 17, we still want it opening towards the negative 17 when we rewrite it. So the solution to the first one is w is less than negative 17, and then we're going to move on to the second one. I'm going to divide both sides by 3 to get w is greater than or equal to negative 9. So we have two separate inequalities which we want to join with our OR in the middle. So w is less than negative 17 or w is greater than or equal to negative 9. Then we can go ahead and just graph them both on the same number line. So I'm going to plot my negative 17 and negative 9. Open dot at negative 17 and shade to the left for w is less than negative 17. And for w is greater than or equal to negative 9, close dot at negative 9 and shade to the right. So notice with those OR inequalities, you're always shading outward instead of in between.